When you look at Jesus, he did most of his miracles in the marketplace. It wasn't in the context of church. So I guess my heart and my passion is to see leaders, business leaders activated to be able to have the ears to hear God as he's talking, to be able to, whether it's an idea for business or to speak to someone when they have an opportunity to release a word to them, or to just to provide, a hug if someone needs a hug, being able to hear that voice of the Lord and the prodding of the Lord, rather than always trying to pursue, the next dollar, where the dollar's coming from. Because God's going to bring the dollar if you're pursuing him. I did have the opportunity to lead my grandfather to the Lord and baptize him. So when I came on full time after college, I had the opportunity to walk him through what that meant and what that looked like. And so I was able to baptize him. Welcome back to the Marketplace Kings Prosperity Podcast. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe so that we can continue to create more content just like this. Our prayer and our hope is that you get something out of these podcasts and you're able to apply into your life and into your business. It's one thing learning principles and theories in school, but it's another thing hearing actual stories of how real marketplace leaders are impacting their spheres of influence in today's economy. So be sure to put a comment below, and we want to hear from you.
Welcome to Marketplace Kings. Hosea Tagarai is my name, and I'm so excited to come into your world with this particular episode, where we seek to bring practical principles, enlightenment, and activation, real life stories from successful business people who are making an impact and a difference in the marketplace, living their faith, winning in the process. I'm so excited today because I have one such mover and shaker. He is a bona fide business executive and a successful businessman, coming from a background and a legacy of a 70-year-old family business. That's a rarity right there. And I'm sure we'll be able to glean a lot of wisdom from his journey. And he is the CEO and the co-founder of Marketplace Kings, and a graduate of Abilene Christian University with a degree in business administration. And he holds an MBA in finance from Southern Methodist University. An incredible network. This man has a very unique anointing to pull in and connect successful business people from around the world that I've never seen anywhere. I'm so excited here today, and I need you to help me welcome none other than Richey Owen.
All right, thank you.
It's good to have you, man.
Yeah,
it's good to have you.
Good to be here, and good to be on my show with me and you.
Yes.
Be in the hot seat this time.
Awesome stuff. Yeah. So let's jump straight into it. You're coming from a family legacy of 70 years, a family business. That's very rare, and that's a very unique, that's a grace right there. What would you say are your early memories and exposure to business?
Well, family businesses, there's always a lot of interesting dynamics to family businesses. And I grew up in the business so much so that my whole childhood was at the business.
Wow.
Typically, I didn't go to summer camps. I ended up going to work. I would Gomer Pyle and I Dream of Jeannie, and some of these TV shows were my babysitter in the back room. But I would be able to run around the whole work area. And I remember whenever a kid would come into the store, I would immediately run over there to them and start asking if they wanted to play. And as soon as their dad was done shopping, they would leave, and I'd be sad that my friend left. But no, growing up in business, it's all I knew. It was one of those, I didn't know anything different, especially when it came to high school. I wanted to stay back at the house, ride bikes around the neighborhood, but my mom would drag me to work, because it was not just my grandfather who started it, but my grandmother, my dad, my mom, aunts and
Wow.
uncle, both sides of my family, my mom and my dad's side.
That's quite insightful already, because I wanted to lean in on something that you already said, that as a kid, while other kids are going to summer camps and doing all that fun stuff, you were already in the marketplace, and you even begin to look for opportunities to play while in there. That shows me that there is always a price to pay for any success in any area. Would you want to say something about that? Obviously, I'm sure by then, because you were paying the price already, even as a kid.
Yeah, but I think every personality is different. My personality, I had a drive for success and for the business. I can't say that for every personality out there. Everyone may have a different experience and a different drive. I came into the business driven to be successful. I know you didn't ask this, but I'm going to move on towards college life
Right.
and university and then MBA school. In college, I already had a case study that every class I went to, whether it was accounting or it was marketing or HR, I had a case study in the back of my mind. How do I apply what I'm learning here to the workplace? Which I felt like I had an advantage, because it helped me kind of put pieces to the puzzle and also learn what I was being taught. I'm not very good at abstract ideas or theories if I don't have an actual
Place to
way
apply
to
that.
apply that principle.
You know what you're saying, that it actually sheds a little more light on the kind of person that you are, and I've seen your strength in that area. That you are very good with converting vision and what needs to be done into executable, practical steps and principles, even in our working together. And it comes into context, even as you say that. And I think that's quite interesting for our viewers as well, because sometimes we can fall into the trap of thinking that education is meant to have a paper qualification. But from what you're saying, I think number one, it helps to know that I'm learning something because I want to apply it. And secondly, to also have a place of application of that particular concept while you're already learning, be it spiritual, be it business.
Right.
Yeah.
We learned from Vic's podcast that he brought up hard work. I saw that modeled in Earl and my grandfather, well,
Wow.
and my dad and mom, and my whole family. But specifically, my grandfather, that was his God, was his. He didn't have any hobbies. It was work. My grandmother had to drag him along on cruises just to get him out of work, but
Wow.
he'd rather get up early, go to work, come home. He'd bring home stacks of invoices. He'd count what he sold that day, and he had such a good memory. Many people within the industry would marvel at his, because we were an automotive aftermarket distributor, and so the warehouse just had parts everywhere. Well, he would remember where a part number was, and I heard this time and time again from different sales reps, the same story pretty much, because they had the same experience. The number would be called out, the warehouse employee would go look for it, would come back and say, no, we don't have it. Earl would be standing there, and he says, no, it's right under the stairs, it's the third one from the top.
Wow.
So he remembered where those parts were, and so definitely saw it modeled hard work. He had a saying that I tried to carry with the company as I began to lead it, is we do the best we can with what we got.
Okay.
It's not the best English,
Gotcha.
but it embodied the work ethic of, we don't have unlimited resources. We don't have everything that we need. Even though we don't have that, we can still get the job done. We're going to do the best we can with what we have.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And while we're still talking about that, you eventually grew your influence and your responsibilities in the business, and ultimately overseeing the merger of the company, which is a very sensitive process. What lessons would you say you learned throughout that process?
Before we get into that, as I was talking about the hard work, I did want to mention, because this is a faith-based podcast, I did have the opportunity to lead my grandfather to the Lord and baptize him. So when I came on full-time after college, I had the opportunity to walk him through what that meant and what that looked like. And so I was able to baptize him.
And I know that's not the only case, even at work.
No.
You have always been a person who was open about sharing his faith and influencing others from a kingdom perspective. Would you want to share with us some of what those experiences were like?
Yeah, and much like some of our podcasts we've had before, where there's this temptation to make work your God. And that was something that I experienced myself. Whereas there were times right after college, coming into the workplace, the drive to succeed is, in some people, is really strong, and it's sometimes it's birthed out of fear, and sometimes it's birthed out of old wounds and wanting to prove yourself. And so for me, that was my case. I made work my God in the sense that every waking minute I was trying to figure out the next solution. How do I win? How do I solve this problem? How do I overcome this or that? Or how do I position the business? Because we're here, and if I want to gain influence and control, or how do I get from here to here, I need to do different things. Through that experience led me into some tough, difficult, dark times, and God had to get my attention. When He finally did, I'm so thankful for that kind of reawakening and rededicating my life to the Lord. This was about 7 years. So 7 years of just fully giving myself over to work, and then having this experience, painful experiences, to lead to his awakening me.
Right.
In that process, a new fire, a new vigor, a new fresh awakening was lit. And so where I had done some ministry kind of out of college in business, and was able to lead a few people to the Lord within the business, post that experience, it was like a lot easier. And I did have some testimonies. Well, I guess I led a Bible study at work, but was able to minister to the different people, whether they were employees or they were sales reps that came in, or who just different, however the Lord was leading in that moment. And that's the key part, is where I felt like the Lord was leading, then I tried to be obedient. And then it really wasn't me doing, I just had to be obedient. In that obedience, He opened the doors and
be able to minister to others. Wow, that's amazing. And many believers find it not an easy task to be able to lead or to share their faith, or even to live their faith in the context of business and the marketplace. Why do you think sometimes, from your experience, it is difficult for either professionals in the marketplace to live and share their faith, like what Vic was sharing, how it took students who are coming to his shop to be bold to share faith with him, and when he got converted, he started doing that to his employees and to fellow friends. But it's not easy for everybody. From your perspective, why do you think it's not easy?
Well, I mean, we'll just touch on this one point is God does wire us all differently, whether or not, some are very evangelistic, and some are not. However, for me, the easiest part was being open and willing to say something when I felt like the Lord was prodding me or leading me to do that. And there were plenty of cases where I was able to give, words of encouragement to executives after an executive meeting. Wow. That we were in, and there were times that that people would come in the office, and would feel like I needed to say something specifically to them, and it would lead to tears, or they were really touched by what the Lord was saying in that moment. So really what it comes down to is just being willing to be used. To answer the rest of your question is why do people find it difficult, is it takes boldness, it takes faith, it takes willing to kind of be weird. And one of the things I've learned in some evangelism training is it's okay to say, this may sound weird.
Right.
But.
So you preempt it.
Right. And knowing your audience, and it's important to know the relationship.
Right.
And how to navigate the relationship that I typically would rather minister to someone after we've developed some sort of a rapport.
A relationship. Amazing. And I'm quite interested and excited at the same time to explore the aspect of how, as a business executive, the fact that you are an executive and you're having an executive meeting, it means God is giving you access to people that conventional preachers have no access to. Mm-hmm. And I believe that is the case with many professionals and many business people. How important do you think that is to realize for business people and for professionals? When you're narrating your story, I'm reminded of the Joseph story, how he was able to bring revelation and to deploy the gifts that God had given him because God had given him access to speak to those people. How important do you think that is for a professional to understand and for business people to understand in the context of them serving God in the marketplace?
It's huge. And that's why we've started Marketplace Kings in the first place, is the importance to be able to influence the industry, the business, the sphere that God has put you in is extremely important. Mm-hmm. Nobody else can affect the business like the person that's listening to this right now, that's in business in the context of their sphere. Nobody can influence that sphere like you can. It's God has planted you there for a very specific reason. And no matter how hard someone tries to break into an industry, you might have been placed in the industry and be thriving there. You have a voice now to really speak into the whole industry.
One of the things that is quite important for people to also understand is extremes are not always safe. Because on the one end, like you're saying, it's possible to have your work, your business as your God. But also on the other extreme, you have people that have not realized how God can be able to use their success as a tool for evangelism, like setting them up to be able to influence certain people. Because there are certain things that because a person has been on a trajectory of success, if they, for example, come out in the open about their faith, many people are going to be able to follow. How do you think we can be able to balance between the two, between worshiping business and what we do in the marketplace, and at the same time making sure that we don't also ignore the advantage that it can give us in living our faith and our life for Christ in the marketplace?
One of my favorite verses is Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. there's no, what we have to understand is there's no replacement for hard work.
Right.
There's going to be hard work. God may give you a dream and a vision and a purpose and a prophetic word. He may give you this dream, but you're the one who has to go out there and put it into action.
Right.
So not to discount there's still hard work that has to happen. Through that hard work, we just have to guard our heart, and this is the process of guarding our heart for the temptation to enjoying this, like worshiping the success that's coming. Because sometimes hard work, you fail, but 9 times out of 10, that failure is going to pick you back up and teach you a lesson, and you're going to keep. The successful entrepreneurs have had stories of failing. I think it's like 3 or 4 times before they hit their success. So in those moments, you take something, you learn from it, you dust yourself off, you keep moving forward, but knowing that this is all for him and for his glory, I'm going to keep working hard. He's going to cause the increase. And on the flip side, don't worship the increase, but rather steward well the increase to be able to impact more people around you.
You're talking about stewardship. One of the outstanding aspects of one of our prototypes in the Marketplace Kings, as we look at the Joseph culture, is Joseph and the key role of a mindset of stewardship. God owns all things. Psalm 24:1 comes to mind. The earth is the Lord's and its fullness and all that dwell therein. What can you share with business people from a stewardship perspective? How does God view what we do, and how can we do what we do in a way that glorifies him as good stewards, either of ideas, of organizations, and of results that God has given us?
That's a good question. I think it depends on every situation. It's different because he might be calling one person to steward it a different way than another person to steward it.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll have to sit and stew on that question for a little bit. But when it comes to ideas, let's take that for example. It's important to be ready to move on an idea that he's given to you. So there's been plenty of times in my life where I feel like there's a lesson or a word, and I don't steward it well. I just
Gotcha.
Man, that was really good, and it blessed me in that 5 minutes. But it probably should have. It was probably intended to bless me much longer if I just sat and chewed on it and
Wow.
probably recalled it day after day for that season. But
that is good.
I kept looking for another word
more.
or another.
Wow.
And when he already gave me something that I should have been chewing on, and stewarding the revelation.
Wow, that is good. In other words, we are saying you need to be a good steward of the revelation that God gives you through ideas, concepts, and precepts that God gives you, and avoid the temptation of just maybe pursuing another new idea.
Right.
But making sure that you have sat on, prayed through, meditated, maybe possibly done even more research around that one idea that God has given you, with the possibility of being able to, especially from where you started from. I believe that when God gives you an idea, the excitement should not just be about the idea, but the practical execution, the doing, the walking into of that idea. And I believe that's where results come out. I think that's amazing.
So in pursuing my next thing, and this is part of it, is an idea would come, and how I explain it to my wife is like, I'm going to peel this onion until I realize it's not, nothing's there or whatever, or I'm going to keep pulling on this idea until I feel like it's dead. But I'm going to keep knocking on that door until I know for sure this is a closed door. When that, for me, is an idea would come, and I talked to as many people as I could, would go to whatever events I needed to go to, do whatever I needed to do to make sure just is this my idea? Is this his idea? Is this going to be a dud? And so plenty of stories where I'd pursue it. I'd try to understand if this was my next thing, and then nope, it wasn't. So back to the drawing board.
And I love that, because I believe that revelation is also progressive. Sometimes God does not reveal everything to us on the word go. And progressive revelation becomes a reward of our continually coming to him in fellowship. As we continue to seek him, he reveals more. As we seek him more, he reveals more. A typical classical example that comes to my mind is in Genesis, where the Bible tells a story of how Isaac and his wife Rebecca, they could not have a child. And then he kept on praying until the Bible says God answered their prayer and Rebecca conceived. And then when a complication arose, Rebecca went to inquire of the Lord. The first layer was God answering with a pregnancy. But when then Rebecca went to inquire again, God spoke of the profile of the children that they were carrying, that it's twins. It's not only twins, it's founders of nations. To me, it illustrates progressive revelation, that sometimes we move away quickly from continuous inquiry concerning something, and we miss the progressive enlightenment that comes in the process. I loved it when you brought up, the aspect that you brought out on stewarding revelation. The other time I was prayerfully meditating as I was writing one of my books, and this is what the Holy Spirit said to me, that every idea that has been birthed in the earth through a secular person, God has always given the right of first refusal to his children. But sometimes our hearts are not postured to receive what God wants to do, and wow. God wants it done in the earth from his benevolent nature as a father responsible for all the people, whether believers and unbelievers.
Because all good gifts come from the Father.
Yeah, so he has to just find any other vessel that he can use. So I think, to me, that hits home when you talk about stewarding ideas, stewarding revelation, that simple thing that God has given you, sitting on it. That's really amazing. Let's talk about Marketplace Kings. What do you see from a prophetic perspective or from a visionary perspective? What is it that God has put on your heart as much as Marketplace Kings is concerned?
So for me, the hope is that marketplace leaders understand their impact on not just themselves, their family, their businesses, but on their industry and their country, that they have such a unique position to influence for the kingdom.
Right.
And there is a level of stewarding what they've been given to not only to preserve and to protect, but also to bring about like real lasting change. When you look at Jesus, he did most of his miracles in the marketplace. It wasn't in the context of church. So I guess my heart and my passion is to see leaders, business leaders activated to be able to have the ears to hear God as he's talking, to be able to, whether it's an idea for business or to speak to someone when they have an opportunity to release a word to them, or to just to provide, a hug if someone needs a hug, being able to hear that voice of the Lord and the prodding of the Lord, rather than always trying to pursue the next dollar, where the dollar's coming from, because
wow.
God's going to bring the dollar if you're pursuing him.
That's amazing. That's really, really amazing to be able to. And many people think successful people, business people, are not really open to believing God. From your experience, would you say that is true, or that's a misrepresentation of the truth?
There's some truth to that. They're now stepping into the faith in the marketplace realm. It feels like there's more faith-based organizations that I wasn't even aware of.
Right.
which I am glad to see so many organizations that are really doing really good work and really helping a lot of business leaders, whether it's C12 or Faith Driven Entrepreneur or Convene or quite a few of these other organizations that are needed in the marketplace right now. And just like we as Christians, it's important to stay in community. It's important to be in community with other fellow Christian business,
like who think
right,
the same as you and feel what you feel.
But yes, there's moving from private family business where we could control the culture, moving into a corporate world. It was night and day, the culture. So to your point, yes, in the corporate world is harder to, I wouldn't say it's harder. It's just, it's not common.
Right.
To see somebody actively trying to integrate their faith within the marketplace context.
That's amazing, because come to think of it, if a person attends church 2-3 hours, to a church engagement, and you do that twice a week, maybe with a midweek, that's about 7% of your weekly time. Over 90% of your time, you are not within the 4 walls of the church. And most of our discipleship programs and models are designed to disciple people within the church and to help them activated to serve within the church. I like what you said when you said it's not common. But when you think about it, that we are at work 8 hours or more, 5 days a week, I think it's a very, having initiatives like Marketplace Kings is long overdue, because if we are going to be fishers of men, we have to go as fishermen where the fish is. And the fish is where? In the marketplace. And I'm fully persuaded that we need to change that paradigm and that status quo where it's uncommon. Because where people are, that's where the influence of the kingdom has to be deployed. So if we can have more professionals, more business people who are awakening to this reality and developing the necessary skills, because I believe there is skill and wisdom that's required to be able to minister in the marketplace, unlike to minister in the conventional church.
And one of the I never thought that I'd do podcasting in general, but one of the dreams and the hopes is that in these podcasts, people are able to hear stories of like-minded Christian entrepreneurs or business leaders and glean from the examples and the trials and the failings from someone else to be able to implement in their businesses. There's a few people that I still want to get on this podcast. There's one specifically I'm thinking of that I had done some business with previously, and it's publicly traded business, but has a couple pastors on staff.
Wow.
And they have not just pastors on staff, but they there's coaches, and there's a whole team of people that support the well-being of the employees from a emotional and spiritual holistic standpoint. Yeah. So again, it's important to hear these stories, to be able to go, how can I take all these different ideas and make my work environment, make my company that much better?
Amazing. I remember in South Africa, I had this particular company that actually, we met in a very dramatic way, because I was ministering online and these guys reached back afterwards. And I was talking about marketplace ministry and miracles in the marketplace and what God can do and how God can use people in the marketplace and so forth. And men got touched by some of the things I was sharing about. He reached out to me, he says, when are you coming to our country? So I said, I'll let you know. Eventually, I got open an opportunity. I went, and he set up a meeting with these business executives. It was a group of 3. They had some business things they were praying through and goals they were trying to achieve. And he says, I felt in my spirit when you were sharing what you were sharing that you could be the right person to pray with these friends of mine. So we started a prayer regiment together. And I remember one of the things that I did, I told them, we meet at intervals, okay? We meet at intervals, but then I need you to also write a list, paint a picture of where you want to be at a particular by a particular time. And we're going to pray through that together and believe God through that together. And that's what we began to do. And within 3 months of that year, what they were looking at achieving over a year, God had overdone it. I mean, he had
Within
done
3
exceedingly.
months.
Yeah, within
Wow.
3 months. So they called me and they said, you know what, we said as a board, we have decided to have you on a retainer on our board as the pastor in our company. So we're talking of a company that had slightly above 100 employees. So they said, we want to offer holistic support for our staff. So even if it's a family member, even if it's them directly, if there is any issue organizationally that we require spiritual input, you are our go-to person. And you can drive and make input into our company policy and activities as much as, for example, our community engagement and social corporate responsibility as a faith people. And I saw an incredible way we can be able to integrate our faith into the system of organizational structuring with companies that can bring amazing kingdom impact. And for you to share exactly like you're talking about of this other the company you're talking about where they have these structures put in place, I think we need to see more and more of that.
Yeah, as you're talking about that, it reminds me of the fivefold within the business context.
Right.
And so you can have the business leader, and there's him listening to the Lord, getting vision, getting revelation, getting direction, moving with, from an apostolic and
As an
prophetic
apostle,
sense. You can, there's the evangelistic aspect and approach to it of sharing the gospel within the context of the marketplace. And then there's the pastoral, which is the taking care of all the employees, all the different needs, all the whether it's emotional or spiritual or physical needs that people have from a pastoral and just teaching too. So all fivefold gifts from a marketplace king's perspective or a marketplace faith initiative should be
Deployed
cohesive and comprehensive in all those aspects within the context of business.
Amazing. We're beginning to touch down, and what is it that you have on your heart that you would want our viewers that you want to leave with our viewers and our followers on Marketplace Kings Prosperity Podcast?
Like and subscribe. Follow us on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Marketplace-king.com is our website. It will be launched probably by the time this comes out. Our website should be launched. So be sure to look out for our Joseph Culture book that will be released by the end of the year, around the beginning of next year. Look forward to just hearing your stories, and drop a comment and let us know what's going on with you and your business and your company, and how we can come alongside you and pray with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited that you would invest this time watching this particular podcast. We want you to know that we believe in what God has given you and the assignment of God on your life in the marketplace. Until we come back again into your world in this particular fashion and manner, we want you to know that you can become all that God has created you to become, and achieve all that God has created you to become and to achieve in the marketplace to the glory of God. God bless you.